We begin today with the news of a terror attack carried out this morning against Israelis in a shopping mall in northern Israel in Carmiel. First responders reported that 2 people were injured, including 1 critically. The Israel police stated that the terrorist had been thwarted. Day 271 of the war in Gaza, the IDF says the Rafah brigade has been decimated with at least 900 terror operatives killed amid the ongoing IDF operation. Visiting troops in southern Gaza, IDF Chief Halevi said that the military will continue to destroy Hamas infrastructure in Rafah, including its tunnels, as the army enters a new phase of the fighting. Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected reports that the war could end with Hamas still in control. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the report.
Chief of Staff Halevi confirmed the decimation of the Hamas Rafah brigade and said that the IDF will continue to destroy Hamas's tunnel infrastructure in Rafah.
אנחנו סופרים בחטיבת רפיח מה שראינו בעיניים. אני לא יודע להגיד דברים מהאוויר. מעל 900 מחבלים הרוגים. בתוכם גם מפקדים, לפחות מפקד גדוד אחד, הרבה מ"פים והרבה פעילים. המאמץ עכשיו, והסיבה שאנחנו עובדים כאן עוד שבוע ועוד שבוע, הוא עכשיו המאמץ על השמדת התשתיות. ועל השמדת התשתיות בתת קרקע, וזה לוקח זמן.
Halevi said there was still more work to be done in Rafah.
יש אנשים שהרגנו בתת קרקע, יש אנשים שניסו לצאת והרגנו. והמאמץ הזה שלנו, המתמשך, הרדיפה הזו, היא מאוד מאוד חשובה. שהם ירגישו מותשים, ואנחנו נרגיש טעונים ונחושים.
Halevi explained that the IDF was moving into the third and final phase of the war.
כשאנחנו נעבור שלב, נתאים לשלב הזה את הדברים המתאימים. נביא שיטות אחרות, נביא תחבולה אחרת, נביא תמיכה לוגיסטית בצורה שונה שהיא תתאים לשלב הזה, וכל הדברים האלה בסוף מתרכזים לזה שאנחנו בנחישות, בהתמדה, באורך רוח, הופכים את זה להתשה לצד השני ולמימוש המשימות מבחינתנו.
Prime Minister Netanyahu issued a statement blasting anonymous sources in the IDF who were quoted telling the New York Times that Israel's military leadership wants a ceasefire in Gaza, even if it leaves Hamas in power for the time being.
אומרים עלומי שם מתדרכים היום את הניו יורק טיימס. הם אומרים לו שישראל תהיה מוכנה לסיים את המלחמה לפני השגת כל מטרותיה. אני לא יודע מי הם אותם גורמים עלומי שם, אבל אני כאן כדי להעביר חד משמעית. זה לא יקרה. אנחנו נסיים את המלחמה רק לאחר שנשיג את כל מטרותיה, לרבות חיסול החמאס ושחרור כל חטופינו. הדרג המדיני הגדיר לצה"ל את המטרות הללו, ולצה"ל יש את כל האמצעים כדי להשיגן.
Meanwhile, Gazan civilians continue to flee the Khan Yunis area following an army order after 20 shells were fired from the city toward Israel. The IDF said forces struck targets in the Khan Yunis area from which the rockets were launched. It said the evacuation order was intended to protect civilians from the airstrikes, but ground forces would not re-enter the city, at least not at this time. Air Force jets bombed targets overnight, including a weapons depot, operational centers, and additional terror infrastructure.
Well, after the New York Times report of a possible truce of some kind that unnamed officials in the IDF are allegedly seeking, here to discuss the situation is Israeli MK Boaz Bismuth. Boaz, thanks so much for joining us today. I want to start with something positive. The newly announced Parliamentary Friendship Council between the United States House of Representatives and the Knesset. Can you tell us more about this new committee?
First of all, I'm very happy to be part of this new committee this morning. I must admit that when I woke up and I went to the Knesset as a new member of this, or co-chair of this friendship group, I mean, I felt very, very proud because in those rainy days that we have, in those very challenging days that we have right now, to have such a group is important. As you know, I mean, where Israel is at war, and it's not a short war, it's a long and tough war, and friendship is important, especially friendship with our biggest ally, which is the United States of America. It was great to see, I mean, our friends coming here and showing support, and we need that legitimacy from the Americans, and this friendship group will do all it can in order to, on the contrary, comfort more and more the American friendship here in Israel and vice versa.
I have to admit I was a little bit shocked as an Israeli American myself that there wasn't already a Friendship Council. I understand the U.S. House of Representatives has only 6, and now Israel. What kind of activities will you guys be conducting through this Friendship Council?
So first of all, I mean, you were not the only one surprised. When I was proposed, I mean, being the co-chair, I was surprised myself. By the way, I must admit that I'm very, although he's opposition, the fact that Idan Rol is with me, I'm very happy. I think he will do also an excellent job. What can I say? What is our challenge? Our challenge, of course, is friendship between the two nations, also fighting anti-Semitism, legitimacy, and maintaining this friendship. I must tell you one thing. I mean, when we speak of America and Israel, yesterday, I mean, we visited with our American friends, with American congressmen. We visited the Kfar Aza in the south. And we saw over there one of the survivors. And he spoke over there, one of those, Shachar, his name is, and he was talking about the fact that you can see the light in the darkness that we have right now. And when he said that, when he spoke about light, I think of America, America with its values, America with its imposing, by the way, imposing in brackets or without its values on the world. I think Israel is doing exactly the same thing. And this is why I think that this, how would I say, this friendship group, and I am in other friendship groups, but this one is not only about rationality, as usually we have in international relationship between countries. It has also to do a lot with emotions, because America and Israel, yes, you can say that. It's also not only a rational, it's also a love story, and this is something that is should be done, and I'm very happy to be part of it.
Absolutely. Shared values is a core part of this allyship. Getting a little bit more political, I wanted to ask you about the New York Times report, which claimed that some IDF officials are perhaps open to some kind of truce that may leave Hamas in power. Where is this coming from? And are there growing tensions between IDF leadership and the government?
Well, tension between IDF leadership and the Israeli government, if you want. You know, for months, people went out to the street and were talking or claiming democracy, and they were much worried about democracy in Israel. Now, in democracy, I'll tell you how it functions. You know, it's government. Government takes decision, and the army executes. This is how it functions. There are parts in history where I would see something not exactly similar, but it was, for example, in Turkey, when you needed the military in order to maintain democracy. Israel, thank God, is not there. We're a democracy, a very, how would I say, a very healthy one. And in a democracy, army execute, army does not decide. This is how it was, and this is how it will continue. And whether some American medias like it or not, this is why I'm in this headline. I would take it in a very skeptical way. And I would say that if anyone imagines that the army can take decisions, well, they're totally wrong. Israel is a democracy. This is not the way it functions. And by the way, when we decide, when we take decisions, we, won elections for that, you know. So it means the decision is for the people, and we obey what they asked.
Last question. We are running out of time, but I wanted to get your take on this regarding the northern front. Of course, we've seen continuous escalation by Hezbollah. Now the Lebanese Foreign Minister is perhaps signaling that they don't want a war. Is there any chance to actually avoid a war when dealing with Hezbollah?
So that's exactly what we talked about this morning with our American friends. I mean, the fact that you mustn't forget one thing. Hezbollah is operating from Lebanon. Lebanon is a sovereign state. I mean, and states and countries like France, like United Kingdom, like America, they've got embassies in Beirut. And they must always remember that in Beirut, you've got a parliament over there seats members of Hezbollah, a terrorist organization. Meaning, in order to fix this problem of Hezbollah, of terrorism in Lebanon, you must also, how would I say, go to the root of the problem, which is also Lebanon by itself. I'm not saying that tomorrow Israel is going to war against the state of Lebanon, but I'm saying that Lebanese state accepts a terrorist group inside their own parliament, meaning, big countries have to take also responsibilities in the Middle East, and what was before the 7th will not be after, meaning a terrorist entity will not govern in the south, meaning in Gaza.
Absolutely,
a terrorist entity will not govern in the north, in Lebanon.
Thank you so much. We are out of time, Boaz, but I want to thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Well, the IDF has been busy in Judea and Samaria conducting security operations against terror cells in multiple locations. The army was also called in today to remove an illegal settler outpost. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the report.
The IDF carried out a drone strike late overnight against a cell of terror operatives in Nur Shams in Samaria. The IDF was tracking the cell and ambushed them as the operatives began to plant a roadside bomb. Separately, IDF troops shot and wounded at least 4 gunmen during searches in the Nablus area for a terrorist who opened fire on Israeli civilians at a Samarian outpost. An Israeli civilian at the Mitzpeh Yosef outpost near the settlement of Har Bracha was slightly wounded by gunfire that came from deep within Nablus. Following the attack, the army said it launched a manhunt for suspects in the Nablus area, during which it exchanged fire with several gunmen. Soldiers have set up checkpoints around the city. Meanwhile, the army was called in to evacuate and demolish the illegal settler outpost of Givat Oz Tzion. Extremists attacked border police and civil administration officials. Rioters threw Molotov cocktails at the forces after having burnt tires and set a vehicle on fire at the entrance to the outpost when the forces arrived to evacuate the site. Following the demolition of 6 makeshift buildings on Givat Oz Tzion during the operation, masked rioters threw rocks down at passing vehicles driving on a nearby road, including those of security personnel. One rock hit the car of a civil administration official, smashing his windscreen. According to the civil administration, Givat Oz Tzion was illegally built on private Palestinian land.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
Big news from Lebanon as the IDF successfully assassinated a senior Hezbollah field commander in an Israeli airstrike. The terrorist killed was initially identified as Abu Ali Nasser, the head of the Aziz unit in Lebanon. On the diplomatic front, efforts are underway to ensure that Hezbollah will cease cross-border attacks on Israel if and when a ceasefire is declared in Gaza and war could be avoided. Meanwhile, the cross-border exchanges are continuing and the north continues to burn. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
Multiple firefighting crews were called in to battle a blaze near Kiryat Shmona, sparked by Hezbollah rocket fire from Lebanon. Teams worked for hours to extinguish the blaze from spreading to nearby homes. Tens of rockets were intercepted by air defense and other impacts caused no injuries. Hezbollah claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it launched dozens of Katyusha rockets at a military base in the area. The IDF responded with fighter jets striking Hezbollah targets in several towns in southern Lebanon. The targets included a building used by the terror group. The IDF also deployed artillery in several towns to remove threats when detected. Meanwhile, the deputy leader of Hezbollah, Sheikh Naim Qassem, says the group cannot say if it would halt hostilities against Israel should the war in Gaza wind down without a formal ceasefire. He said Hezbollah's participation in the war has been as a support front for its ally, and if the war stops, this military support will no longer exist. French President Emmanuel Macron called Prime Minister Netanyahu, urging a diplomatic solution to avoid war in Lebanon and to prevent a conflagration. Macron reiterated his serious concern over what he described as a deepening of tensions between Hezbollah and Israel that would harm the interests of both Lebanon and Israel. And according to a Jerusalem Post report, the Lebanese Foreign Minister Habib sent a special third-party message to Foreign Minister Israel Katz, explaining to him that his country did not want war to break out between them. "We are interested in peace," the message said. "We do not want war." The statement was delivered through the Azeri foreign minister, who reportedly spoke with Katz.
In medieval times, blood libels ignited pogroms that shattered our people. And now echoes of these lies persist in new blood libels. On college campuses, online, in the media, and halls of power, Jewish communities are facing this haunting echo of history once again. That's why we must speak out and make our voices heard. Today, there is only one organization that truly brings together Jewish communities from more than 100 countries and effectively elevates the voices of young leaders standing on the front lines in this battle for our survival, the World Jewish Congress.
In a remarkable show of solidarity and preparedness, United Hatala, in partnership with philanthropist Dr. Miriam Adelson and her family, has unveiled a new fleet of emergency vehicles. ILTV's Ariella Lahiani has more.
At an emotional ceremony, United Hatala inaugurated 76 new ambucycles, emergency vehicles, and an ambulance. This significant event took place yesterday at Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, marking a milestone in Israel's emergency response capabilities. This initiative, in collaboration with Dr. Miriam Adelson and her sons Adam and Matan, aims to bolster the nation's readiness for both daily emergencies and national crises. These vehicles will be strategically dispersed across Israel's northern regions, the Gaza envelope, and Judea and Samaria.
מ-7 לאוקטובר באמת גייסנו הרבה בעולם מאנשים טובים שפתחו את ליבם ואת כיסם בשביל לעזור לנו בדבר הזה, וכחלק מזה גם משפחת אדלסון שנרתמה לטובת העניין, והיום בערב אנחנו משיקים ליחידת האופנולנסים של משפחת אדלסון 76 אופנועים שלכבוד 76 שנה למדינת ישראל.
Dr. Miriam Adelson dedicated upgraded ambulances and emergency vehicles in memory of fallen heroes. One such dedication was for Maor Lavi, a United Hatzalah volunteer medic who fell in battle in Gaza. Another was for Elad Tomer, a devoted volunteer killed in the line of duty. Their families attended the ceremony, underscoring the personal sacrifices made by these brave individuals. The 76 ambucycles commemorate the 76 years since the establishment of the State of Israel. United Hatzalah's resilience has been unwavering, especially after October 7th, when they lost 18 volunteers and their family members. Despite these losses, the organization continues its life-saving mission with dedication and courage. United Hatzalah, Israel's volunteer emergency medical service, has been a beacon of hope, providing professional life-saving emergency medical treatment to over 6.5 million people since its inception. This new fleet stands as a testament to the resilience and unity of Israel and its people.
With so much turmoil and a multi-front war in Israel on top of serious challenges of disinformation across social media, some activists are coming out of the woodwork to support interfaith dialogue on a deeper level. The coverage and social media discussion surrounding the Gaza war has contributed to polarization and divisions globally, thanks to inaccurate framing of the entire conflict. But is there a better way? Joining us to speak about her efforts is Moroccan policy advisor and activist Shama Meshtali. Shama, thanks so much for joining us today. I just wanted to start by asking you about your efforts in interfaith dialogue. You've worked a lot on this, as well as Arab-Israeli integration. What has changed for you since October 7th, if anything?
Thank you so much for having me, Emily. A lot has changed since October 7th. Let me just preface by saying that I spent my entire life, my entire career dedicated to interfaith dialogue, to building and creating safe spaces for Muslims and Jews to come together and to learn from one another and to build sustainable relationship. And I dedicated a lot of my life since the Abraham Accords were signed to regional integration in the region. And when October 7th happened, as someone who had developed incredible relationships within the region and in Israel, I lost a lot of friends. I actually have gone through really horrific moments the day of October 7th, where I'm finding out that my own communities have suffered the worst massacre since the creation of the State of Israel. A couple of challenges are the fact that interfaith dialogue and sort of peace-building spaces have not been solving for two crucial things. One is Zionism and the essentially decolonization of an indigenous community from the Middle East, and being unable to see it for what it is. And then two is the erasure of Jewish indigeneity across discourse.
I actually wanted to ask you about that because for decades there's been a perception that Jews are not from the Middle East, that they're some kind of colonizers. I would love if you could speak a little bit about this narrative. We are running out of time, but if you could give us a little bit about that challenge.
Yeah, well, this is something that we can't really cover in a few minutes at length, but this idea that Jews are white colonizers really was solidified in Western and Eurocentric discourse because people kind of look around them in America and in the West and see white passing Jews define what Jewish culture and Jewish political ideology look like or should look like, and then they kind of superimpose their own understanding, which is a very flawed understanding of the geopolitics and the history and specifically the demographic of the Middle East and North Africa. Mm-hmm. And so the way you play, and let me just also add to that there is a reason why these Jews in Europe and in West are white passing, right? Because if they stood out more in terms of their scale of colorism in Europe during the Holocaust, they would have been targeted first.
Absolutely,
so
Shama, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but we are actually out of time. I want to thank you for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you for having me.
Since October 7th, there have been a number of disturbing exposés revealing the collusion between international media bodies and freelance journalists in Gaza, who also happen to be active members of Hamas or other terror groups. This week, media watchdog group Honest Reporting has exposed another scandal involving a CNN freelancer. Let's see the full story. CNN freelance correspondent Abdelkader Sabah was exposed this week for his ties and support of the U.S.-designated terrorist organization Hamas. Sabah has been photographed with senior Hamas officials, has worked in a Hamas-controlled body, and has explicitly praised acts of terrorism. He has also created promotional content for the Hamas-controlled security body under the Hamas Ministry of the Interior. His reports have been used frequently by CNN throughout the war in Gaza, and he has also worked in the past for the Associated Press, another international body that has been caught up in similar scandals since October 7th. In response to the exposé by the media watchdog group Honest Reporting, CNN stated that they will no longer be using Sabah's material and that they were not aware of his offensive social media posts and support for Hamas. Honest Reporting stated that this is the 11th journalist who has been dismissed or reassigned due to associations with terrorist organizations, raising serious concerns about the credibility of reporting from Gaza. Well, it's no surprise to hear inflammatory and even anti-Semitic statements from the former Pink Floyd artist Roger Waters. He's been harshly criticized for years for his statements of hostility and at times somewhat incomprehensible rants about both Israel and the West. This week, however, Waters is in the headlines again for his bizarre behavior on Piers Morgan's Uncensored. Let's take a look. This week on Piers Morgan Uncensored, notorious anti-Israel activist and former member of Pink Floyd, Roger Waters, was called out for his anti-Semitism and denial of Hamas atrocities committed on October 7th. When challenged by Morgan, Waters appeared to have a full conversation with himself on air, persuading himself not to fall for the lies of Morgan.
All the filthy, disgusting lies that the Israelis told after October the 7th.
Like what?
About burning babies and women being raped, which were all completely...
Actually, women were raped.
No, they weren't.
Yes, they were.
Well, there's no evidence.
It's been established by the United Nations.
You can say anything that you want, but there's no evidence.
Actually, there is extensive evidence.
There is no evidence.
Sexual assault and rape. Well, there is.
OK, well, all right, now...
Also, we know what Hamas broadcast on social media.
Calm down. Roger, calm down. Don't sink to his level. All right, I won't.
What level?
Well, stop shouting. Stop shouting back. Let him interrupt you as much as you want. OK, all right. Sorry, Piers, what were you saying?
Social media users have responded with criticism of Waters and comments asking why Morgan would platform Waters, who is a known anti-Semite, in the first place. Others were disturbed by Waters' apparent mental health issue. Despite the bizarre interview, Waters shared a photo with Morgan post-interview on his social media. Take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 22 degrees Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, sunny skies and hot temperatures are expected, as we should be seeing highs of 36 degrees Celsius or 97 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.